today's presentation. This presentation is going to be recorded, and today we're going to be talking about our Illinois Humanities Envisioning Justice grants. So let's get into it. We will have a question and answer portion at the end. You're welcome to put in questions that you have as they come up in the chat, but please know that we will address them all at once at the end of the presentation. So, who we are at Illinois Humanities is we're a statewide nonprofit that activates the humanities through free public programs, grants, and educational opportunities that spark conversation, foster reflection, build community, and strengthen civic engagement for everyone in Illinois. We were founded in 1974 and we're the state partner for the National Endowment for the Humanities. Our vision is to have an Illinois where the humanities are central to making the state more just, creative, and connected. We value centering people's experiences, histories, and cultures, actively promoting equity, uplifting diversity, and ensuring inclusion. We're also making and protecting space for the exchange of challenging ideas, meaningful dialogue, and personal reflection. And finally, we value intentional, partner-centered relationships that build social capital and strengthen social cohesion, particularly for underserved and historically disenfranchised communities. Some of the impact that we've had is that 4,050 Illinoisans in 47 counties engaged with culture, history, and contemporary social issues through free Rhodes Scholars speakers presentations. There was a 200% increase in visitors to Museum on Main Street. Our traveling Smithsonian exhibition showcasing local heritage across 7 Illinois towns. 988 youth poets statewide participated in our annual Gwendolyn Brooks Youth Poetry Awards, which is something I look forward to every year. And we saw a 13% growth in applications to the Odyssey Project, Proyecto Odisea, for our free college program empowering adult learners in a supportive educational community. Our agenda for today is we're going to do an overview of the Envisioning Justice Grants program. We'll walk you through the application process. And then myself and my colleague are going to have a conversation about our Envisioning Justice grants. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be having a Q&A session. So today your speakers are myself, B.B. Cooper Browne. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Grants Program Officer at Illinois Humanities. And then later we'll be joined by Tony Pizarro, who's our Program Manager for Envisioning Justice. All right, Envisioning Justice Grants Overview. These project-based grants support collectives, nonprofit organizations, and other groups that use public humanities programming to re-examine and reimagine the criminal legal system, leveraging the arts and humanities to examine mass incarceration and collectively shape a more just future. These grants are impacting the public's understanding of mass incarceration. For Envisioning Justice, there will be a 2-step application process. The first is an open call for letters of intent. The letter of intent is a short proposal form focused on applicant eligibility and brief program details. The second step will be an invited application. So, Illinois Humanities will review all letters of intent and invite up to 30 proposals to submit a full application. And please note that an invitation to apply does not guarantee funding. Rather, awards will be made out of the invited applicant pool. Envisioning Justice grants are open for both organizations and individuals residing and working in Illinois. Grants for individuals will support projects up to $5,000. And grants to organizations may request up to $10,000 in support of their projects. To be eligible, organizations must have an active 501c3 status in good standing with the IRS or you must work with a fiscal sponsor who has that 501c3 status in good standing with the IRS. If you ever have any questions on your eligibility requirements as an organization, you can always reach out to the grants team at communitygrants@ilhumanities.org, and we'll be happy to help you out. Some important timeline dates to know for the Envisioning Justice grants is that LOI submissions will open on Friday, May 1st, 2026, so a month from now. And they'll be open for 6 weeks. So the LOI submission will then close on Friday, June 15th, 2026. Illinois Humanities will review the submitted LOIs in June and July, and invited applicants will be notified of their invitation to submit a full proposal within 5 weeks. The formal application, that is invitation only, will be open in July and August. The review of those applications will be happening in September of this year, and then award notifications will go out in October 2026. Just to get a little bit more of what we mean by good standing for those organizations, is that you must have up-to-date public records of your submitted taxes, or that could be a 1099, or it could be a smaller form if you're an organization with revenue of $50,000 or less. There is a public website on irs.gov where you can search actually for your organization to check on the good standing prior to submitting. Again, this is a process we can absolutely help you with. And a note on some things that Illinois Humanities does not fund. We don't fund alcoholic beverages, for-profit businesses, capital projects, endowment campaigns, foreign travel, lobbying, social services, major equipment purchases, and programming that falls outside of the humanities. So, how do we apply? What you'll be waiting for in coming up is for the open call to open on May 1st, and I'm going to walk you through how you'll submit your LOI once you're able to do so. So first, you'll need to access the LOI submission form. You can do so by visiting our website at ilhumanities.org/grants. And you'll want to click on this lovely button that is circled in green on the screen here called our online portal. That's where all of our applications live. Once you arrive on the login screen, you'll want to use your login credentials or create an account if you don't have one already. If you're unsure if you have an account or if someone at your organization has already made a record, you can, again, reach out to us at communitygrants@ilhumanities.org, and we'll check to see if you have a record or not. Once you log in, you want to go to the Apply page, which you can access from your applicant dashboard. The Apply button looks like a little page with a dog ear icon and the word apply next to it. On the apply page, once the LOI submission is open, you'll then be able to submit by clicking on the blue apply button. One of the first things we'll ask for the letter of intent, which again, the focus is on eligibility and brief details about your proposal, is we'll want to know if you're applying as an individual or as an organization. We've got an example from our recent open call for letters of intent for our project grants here. Just as an example, you'll be asked to put in a form name and then select which applicant type you are. For individuals, your eligibility questions involve letting us know about your experience. And then there's also an option for you to upload a resume if you'd like. And then for organizations, we'll want to know what type of organization that you are, as well as some details about whether you are a 501c3 status organization yourself, or if you'll be using a fiscal sponsor. And then we'll also ask just a couple of, it's a data question, um, asking if your organization has any of the following, like a strategic plan, a cultural data project profile, accessibility plan, or an diversity and inclusion plan or statement. This is just a survey question, so I just call this out to let you all know that your response to this question in particular does not um, have bear any weight on your eligibility or the strength of your application. And finally, here are some examples of proposal questions that you might see on the letter of intent. We'll always ask for a project summary, so a very brief 2 to 3 sentences as a summary for your project. Who is your audience and your engagement goals with them, your project timeline, your use of funds, and anything else you would like to add. The questions for the letter of intent will be made available around that same time when the call for letters of intent opens on May 1st. Once you've filled out your eligibility, gotten those proposal details out, you'll be able to save your application. You can save it, your progress, and come back to the LOI submission form at any time. Um, And then we always recommend that you review your entire application prior to submitting it because changes cannot be made after it has been submitted. So just make sure to review your submission just before you click the submit button. Great. And now that the presentation PowerPoint aspect of uh, our gathering today is over, I want to invite the wonderful Dr. Tony Pizarro to come on screen. I will stop sharing mine and let's talk about envisioning justice grants. How are you doing today, Tony?
Good. And yourself?
I'm doing well. Envisioning Justice is like one of my favorite grant programs that we have at Illinois Humanities. We always have like so many great proposals and projects that come out. Um, is there a previous grant project or event that you've gone to recently with Envisioning Justice that could sort of give our folks an example of a successful Envisioning Justice program?
Yeah, so I just attended a grantee event in Bloomington, Illinois, this past week, and it was called an Echo Build. And one of the things that I believe the grantee did well was bring in community partners to participate. And the audience were teenagers. And so they had teenagers examine mass incarceration, but they brought in different speakers and they had different stations or breakout sessions for the youth to engage, for example, through music, through storytelling, through poetry. So it wasn't so much of them just talking and presenting content. They also left space for people to engage, reflect, and respond. And so I thought that was really good that it wasn't just one person talking throughout the event, but uh, multiple voices were utilized.
Yeah, that's so cool that it had like an intergenerational element to it. I just uplift your point about like, yeah, having not just one person speaking and having folks reflect, that really gets at what we do at Illinois Humanities, which is the public humanities. So not just keeping the humanities in the academic sense, but using the humanities to connect to each other, to dive into difficult topics and challenges, um, and making sure that, it's also not just the art of the storytelling, it's how do we take that and bring it into that reflection and into that next space. Um, is there anything about envisioning justice like that we don't fund other than those, alcoholic beverages, like uh, other types of programming that envisioning justice doesn't support?
Um, I would say we don't fund social service type programs. So, for example, there may be children or a community that's impacted by mass incarceration. So sometimes people will apply to be able to give back the school supplies back. And while that's a great and awesome event, it does not necessarily facilitate a dialogue. It does not create a space for people to discuss mass incarceration. And so I think that's one of the main things because there are um, different threads that people use to apply for an Envision and Justice grant to provide a service. And so just making that distinction is something that we don't fund. And again, while we fund storytelling, it could look differently. It could be through theater, it can be through a documentary. Um, and so don't want to limit it to just a story or a particular conversation in a setting. So individuals could be as creative as they want, but just making sure we draw the line and making sure that they are using the arts and the humanities as a bridge to whatever the project is.
Right. So the focus is on how the arts and humanities can be leveraged as a tool to connect us. Does that make this, is that right?
Please.
Yeah. Uh, I agreed. It's so interesting to see all the different creative projects that folks submit with. And it's also great that you don't have to be a humanities organization or a humanities scholar in order to apply for the Envisioning Justice grants because they're project based. As long as you are committed to using the arts and humanities to have a public impact on the perception of mass incarceration and creating more understanding, that and you are of course residing and working in Illinois and have experience working with those communities, those are really like the base requirements. I think it's important to be able to see people who are at different experience levels engaging in this type of programming. So I think it's really wonderful that it's not limited, but there are parameters, I guess I would say, for applying for these grants. Is there anything else maybe that we haven't mentioned, uh, Tony, that we should talk about?
Yes. For grant writers, I know it's difficult to streamline your grants, especially when you have to apply for a lot, but specificity is important, and your budget tells a story. And so sometimes it's good to look at your budget to ensure that your budget matches the story of your project. For example, if you're working with someone that's system impacted and you state in your project narrative that you are going to work with someone system impacted, but then it's not reflected in your budget how that person will be paid. Or for example, if you are going to do certain things within your project, uh, do you have that also reflected in your budget? So not assuming that we can connect the dots for you. So I would just state that taking the time to look through your budget to ensure that it makes sense with whatever timeline or project that you are doing, because that tells its own story and it helps us to make sense out of what you are trying to do. The other thing that I would state that we haven't talked about is that a lot of people who apply for the Envision and Justice grant is applying for this to supplement bigger projects that they are already doing. So if, for example, you have a grant with a from another foundation or another organization, and you may just need funding to get you over the line for whatever your project is doing, we have had grantee partners who have also applied in that capacity to supplement the money that they have already received to finish a bigger project. And so that is something also that we haven't discussed here, but that is an option.
Yes, that's awesome for especially supporting like larger convenings or conference events. A lot of times it's very much uh can we say many funders make light work? But it's a lot of work to get those funding source. So yes, thank you so much for uplifting that. If there are any other, now's our time for questions and answers. If anyone has any questions about the Envisioning Justice Program, feel free to either come off mute and ask your question or drop it in the chat. Great. Well, I take not having questions as a sign that we have covered quite a lot of information. It was hopefully helpful for all of you all this morning. Um, I do want to, because we are a month out uh, from our opening date, I do want to encourage you all to join the Illinois Humanities mailing list. I'm going to bring up a QR code in a moment, but joining our mailing list will help you stay connected, not just to everything that's happening at Illinois Humanities, but we'll also send you a reminder for when the open call is ready for you all. And if any questions popped up while I'm bringing up the QR code on my screen, please feel free to ask.
And as BB bring that up, I would also encourage you to sign up for our Envisioning Justice newsletter, which is an additional resource. And so we provide additional grant opportunities through our newsletter, which is available every other month. And these grants are from other funders, and they vary in awards. And so again, we know that this is an ongoing thing that people need continuous support, resources, and access to funding. And so the newsletter could be a great way for you to have access to be able to at least look through some of those grant opportunities and see what may fit you or your organization.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this morning. It was really wonderful just to get out a lot of information about envisioning justice grants. We've got lots to look forward to coming up in May. So thank you again for joining us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at communitygrants@ilhumanities.org. That's communitygrants@ilhumanities.org, and we'll be happy to assist you. Have a great day, everyone.